G'day guys, Liam Fitzpatrick here. Welcome back to another installment of my tackle hack series. Today we're going to show you how to fix a noisy reel. Now, talking spinning reels, most of you guys out there, I'm pretty sure you would have either had it happen yourself, or if you've been watching my videos, you would have heard this little bad boy screaming during the fight or whenever you're turning the handle. Now, it's caused by the line roller bearing. Little bearing that's in the bail arm assembly system that rolls as you're bringing line back onto your reel. Now that bearing is the first bearing to cop punishment. Salt water's coming in with your line, it's running around there, it's pushing salt water into that bearing. So typically it's the first, if you're not keeping up with your maintenance, oiling your bearings every other trip, that's your first one that's going to start to seize up, start to rust, get a bit of rust on there. That little bit of rust is going to give you a little bit of a grind. That grind's going to give you noise. So I'm going to show you a quick, easy way to fix that yourself. Simple as, here we go. All right, so first of all, you've got to get in there and get that bearing out. Now, depending on the reel, the assembly's going to vary a little bit, but it's not real complicated. It's just either an Allen key or a Phillips head, flathead screwdriver. Take that little grub screw out, pull the assembly out. Your bearing's going to be housed in a little housing. I'll show you all that in a second, but the main thing is once you've got your bearing out, that's the one that's got the rust and is making all that noise and commotion. Take that to a bearing supplies. Now, your other way has always been take it back to a tackle shop or contact the reel manufacturer, get an actual part-specific replacement, which is going to cost you, way more than it's going to cost you to do this. You're looking at 20, 30. If you've got a reel technician to pull the reel apart and do all this for you, you're looking at 30 bucks and upwards plus parts. So simple little hack here, rip that guy out, get it down to your local bearing supplier. They'll put it on the veneers, measure it up, and I haven't been to one supplier yet that hasn't had the bearing in stock that I've needed. So simple, they'll measure it, they'll come back. All their bearings too. You think, oh, Daiwa, Shimano, Luz, all these big companies, they do special reels, special bearings, anti-corrosion, anti-rust. You can still get an anti-rust, anti-corrosion bearing from a bearing supplier. So do that, get your own bearing. I'll show you how to get it out, get it back in, and fix the problem. All right, so with my Luz CS200, these guys are held in with an Allen key. So, most dudes, you guys, you should have still tool set Allen keys and screwdrivers lying around the house. But yeah, little Allen key, and we're just going to pull out that little grub screw that's holding it all together, piece by piece. When you pull stuff out, especially if you're not too certain what you're doing, just lay it down in the order that it comes out. Put it on a little bit of, a board, paper towel, something. I've just got the old tackle box out. So we'll get that out of there. I'll film a close-up of what I'm doing as well. Cut it in and out so you guys get to see what's going on. That's just that little grub screw. You can see initially they've had a little bit of Loctite on there. You can see a little bit of coloration. You can Loctite it back up in there, but I don't really find the need. If you're always doing services and putting oil in there and tightening things back up, you're going to be right anyway. All right, so once you've got that little screw out, you take out your pieces as they come out. So I've got the little housing that's going to hold one of the bearings. As they've come out, I've got a little brass washer that spaces between a second bearing. So I've got two bearings in this assembly. So what I'm going to do is going to replace both of those. I've got two bearings, I'm going to oil them up, I'm going to put them back in there, and then this reel should be not screaming and singing a sweet song. You can see that bearing's just pressed into this housing. So we just give them a little poke with our Allen key. Out comes the bearing. So obviously, if you were going to oil that bearing, do a little bit of maintenance, you'd get into there now, you grab your little reel oiler, give that guy some oil, work it in, roll it back and forth. So if that's the rusty one, the old one that's got to come out, obviously we're going to turf that. The new one going back in, I'd give it a bit of oil, make sure it's all lubed up and it's good for the next few sessions. So depending on your reel too, don't freak out if your bail assembly drops out on you. These Luz guys, they do a locking system where it drops in, it's got a little slot, drops back into that other side, twists around, and it can't come back out again. So just don't freak out if your reel starts falling to pieces on you. This isn't going to affect any major bits of your reel. It's pretty simple, it's pretty basic. Just want to do a little tackle hack on it. Something you guys can do. Yeah, so once we've got our new bearing and we give it a few drops of oil, give it a bit on both sides. You see, just these little needler reel oilers are awesome. You can get right into the other bearings. What I'll do too is I'll show you what other bits I'd oil just while you're doing this real basic sort of stuff. I wouldn't go getting too deep. It's just going to be surface stuff, you know, things you can access with that little reel oiler, that needle, and do all your bearings while you're at it. So that guy's oiled up. He's good to go back in the housing. If your housing did have some rust from that old bearing, I'd give it a hit with I usually use a toothbrush. Just give it a brush in there with some spray, some oil. I've already done that. That's all nice and clean. Bearing goes back in. All right, so on my luge, this is going to have this two bearings. So the first bearing went back on that little support bar. Then we had the little brass washer. That's going to act as a spacer between the two bearings. And then finally that little roller housing with our last bearing. Just goes back on. That slots back into the bail assembly. Screw goes back in. Like I said, Allen key for a lose. So there you go. That is old rusty line roller bearings removed, replaced, oiled, good to go. So while we're at it, I'll show you a couple other places that I like to put oil. This is just my basic, quick little reel. Not really a service, but just upkeep on your reel. So any of your moving parts, so your line roller bearings always going to be somewhere that wants some oil. You're going to have some bearings, depending on the quality of your reel, you're going to have a couple bearings either side of the handle assembly. Get into those, just whack your handle out. Depending again what you've got, you may have direct drive or direct thread, or you might have a retaining cap that holds the other side, so you'll need to undo that. This guy is just a cover cap. I'd take both of those off. You're going to find that there's going to be a bearing in the back of each side of there. Again, depending on the quality of your reel, same deal. Just get that needle in there, a little bit of oil on that bearing, a little bit of oil on the other side. These guys are simple, man. You just give them a bit of oil, get that handle back in, and then just give it some love. Rotate that oil, rotate that bearing, get that oil to work into it. Usually if you've got a handle, or like you've got a reel that's starting to seize up, you're like, oh, my reel's seizing up, it's not whining. Usually it's going to be those two bearings. They're either already gone, too far gone, or you got to get in there quick ASAP, get some oil into them, bring them back to life. And the next one, depending on your reel again, you may have an actual bearing in your handle assembly. Now, I can hear mine's making a little bit of noise. This reel sat in the kayak, had a few good sessions in the salt, so may have something in there. We'll get in there, we'll have a look, see if he needs a bit of love. Yeah, so that's going to be the majority of your bearings that you're going to have access to. Some reels may have a bearing on the pinion gear inside. If you take that spool off, see, I've just got a bush there, just a packer. Some reels will have a little bearing on the pinion there just to balance the system, so you might want to get in there, give it a bit of oil. So the other spot that's going to have a bearing is going to be in your handle assembly, again depending on your reel. Alright, so I've undone this little cap screw and then the screw internally. Take that handle off. Any of your bits you want to give a bit of a clean, I just use Ballisto. Just give that a spray. That's had some salt and some bit of gunk build up in there, so give that a bit of a clean. So this Lewis CS200, it's running two bearings. It's got a bearing sitting right down in the base of the handle here, and then it's got a bearing sitting internally. So I'll get both of them out, give them an oil, and we'll get them back in. So he's been making a little bit of noise as well. Like I said, this reel's been sitting in the kayak, a little puddle of water in between my legs. So we'll give that guy some love. Same deal, bit of oil in there. work it in. And we'll throw them back together. So that bearing just went back down in that handle. Tap him back down into place. Little tip whenever you're doing these little screws, always spin them backwards. Just a touch till you feel that little drop as that thread hits. And then put them back down. That way you're not going to cross thread them, do any damage to your reel. Alright, do him up. Cap goes back on. There we go. Handle sorted. Alright, so with that hack, like I said, you can pull out any one of those bearings, take them down to a bearing supplier, they'll put them on the veneers, measure them up, replace all your bearings with any rust, any corrosion. Don't have to send your reel away, don't have to give it to a tackle guy, technician, like a reel repairist. Obviously, I still send my reels off, you know, if I've got major problems or they are due for service, you know, internally. I don't like ripping at gears. These guys have got a little access port. Some of your other reels will have that. I'll put a bit of gear lube internally just for the gears, but always oil my my bearings, and always gives the outside a bit of a spray. Like I said, a bit of Ballistol. I usually put a rag over the braid and just give the body a spray. A lot of your reels that have got little shiny components and bits and pieces will corrode up and start to look a bit nasty if you don't give it that little bit of love. All right, that's it for this tackle hack. Fixing those bearings up, getting rid of that noisy reel. You know, your mates hate hearing it. I know you guys hate hearing my video. I've been a bit slack lately. I'd rather fish than do maintenance and fix things, so took some time. You know, it's been raining a heap here, so why not do it now? Get it back up and running. Anyways, that's it. If you enjoyed that, give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe, share, comment. If you need to know anything, if you got any suggestions, if I missed something, I hate technical stuff, man. Don't get me wrong. I'm definitely by no means a mechanic or a reel tech or any of that stuff, but I do look after them every now and then. That's the simplest way to do it, easy way to do it. Hope you liked it. I'll catch you next time. Cheers, guys.